God's honest truth, I kind of always thought Trump would win until maybe the final days, just because it felt like Kamala Harris had this real momentum. But the signs were there. And I have a very diverse friend group, family, like people who vote different ways. And I have felt like there was a yearning in this country that people wanted Donald Trump back. And the most common thing I heard this entire election cycle was, I don't like his personality, I don't like the way he talks, but my life was better when he was in office. And I'm in this position where I feel a bit unburdened by what has been. I'm going to wait and see. He's not been sworn in yet. I'm somebody who probably agrees with 75% of his policies. If he focuses on creating jobs, on bringing down the cost of living, securing the border in a responsible way, and being tough on America's adversaries, I'm all for it. What doesn't mean we're not going to call balls and strikes when he does things that are beyond the pale or he uses words that are offensive to people, then be ready to call that out. But I just think I'm kind of shying away from this sort of apocalyptic, it's all, we need to be like losing sleep over it. The American system of government is strong. It's held. There are checks and balances, even if my party's in control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency. And I think we should I root for America, so I root for a smart, serious Donald Trump presidency.
So I think what we're all saying is we're going to sit and watch. We're going to wait and see because we can't do anything else except.
I'm not going to wait and see. I mean, this guy is told us he's a retribution. He's going to be a dictator.
There's nothing to be done until you know what you're fighting. It's pissing in the wind doesn't help. You just get a wet face.
But what I'm saying is I have no false expectations that at 78 he's going to all of a sudden turn into another human being. And I'm not going to spend. I spent weeks telling people that he was apocalyptic. I'm not going to change now because it's still the same man.
Not treating every single thing like
I think that's when we lose credibility.
Well, here's the thing: you lose credibility in many different ways. If you don't know what you're talking about and you accuse him of something, then they're going to blow it back. That's why I say we need to wait and see exactly what you're going to do.
Yeah. Donald Trump's vision for his second-term cabinet, we now understand it in full. The once and future president's personnel choices revealing a stark contrast with his first administration. So among Trump's picks this time, an independent with the last name Kennedy who supports abortion rights, more than one former Democratic presidential contender, a centrist Republican who is favored by the Teamsters Union, a man who fundraised for Al Gore and advised George Soros. And then, of course, there are quite a few MAGA loyalists and Fox News favorites. It all adds up to a cabinet that is united not by dogma, but by loyalty to Trump and his vision. Over the weekend, Mike Allen and Jim Vandehei writing this in Axios, quote, "Lost in the noise of Trump's most controversial picks is the simple, undebatable fact that this might be the most ideologically diverse cabinet of modern times. The team represents the Trump worldview. Traditional conservatism is dead, and its biggest lifelong advocates neutered to the point of irrelevance." A Trump transition source told us that most of the picks are a version of Trump in their thinking and approach. They're fearless disruptors who can walk into these buildings and know they have a mandate for reform and change.
But let me be very clear here. You have Project 2025, which is a piece of paper. But wait, David, come on. I'll give you an example of what they want to cut. They want to put lifetime benefits on Medicaid, which effectively means that if you have cancer or you're in dialysis and you hit your limit, you're out. They want to put lifetime benefits on housing, which means that if you hit them, you're homeless. So there are things in this budget that are non-discretionary, David, that you talked about, that this administration has embraced, which is why they put Russ Vought in charge of this whole enterprise to effectively eradicate things that you think are inviolable, but in fact are very much in the scope of what Donald Trump ran on and something that the people around him want to do. So it's not just a question of DOGE, it's a question of holistically what they're targeting. And they're not just targeting that rat mole museum, which God bless if that's all they want to do. But if you look at what they've talked about targeting, it is much broader than that. It actually affects people's health care. It actually affects where people live. And that's a problem. That's actually a seriously huge problem, not just for Democrats, but for some Republicans who I assume don't want to throw grandma off of dialysis because she hit her lifetime limit on her health care benefits.
Yeah, Jim, where's Daniel Dale when we need him, buddy? This is a Snopes moment. Donald Trump has disavowed Project 2025.
He put Russ Vought in charge.
Julie,
David, I appreciate you bringing up. I appreciate you bringing up Daniel Dale. We'll have him on sometime. soon, I hope. I don't know. He might be off having
Wrong.
turkey somewhere.
Listen,
which probably would be
stop.
But
Jim, you need to say that Project 2025, the Trump administration, you need to acknowledge. Jim, you need to acknowledge that Donald Trump has disavowed Project 2025.
He put the architect of Project 25
I was just about
in
to
charge
say,
of OMB.
Right, David, I was just about to say, Donald Trump out on the campaign trail time and again disavowed Project 2025, and yet he put one of the architects. But I will say he put one of the architects of Project 2025 in charge of the Office of Management and Budget. David.
That's two different things.
You and I have talked about this before. Why not just admit that the president-elect was not telling the truth out on the campaign trail when he said he had nothing to do with Project 2025, he had no knowledge of it?
Because he didn't.
All of that was just a snow job, right? That was just...
Jim, why don't you just admit... Why don't you just admit that he has said that it doesn't? It's not a blueprint
David,
for the
that was a bigger
administration.
turkey than what I'm going to have on the Thanksgiving table later this week. I'm sorry, but
come on, come on! Look, you guys are going to get 4 Pinocchios, both you and Julie, both. Come on, Washington Post, Daniel Dale.
For what? For what? For putting somebody in charge who wrote Project 2020?
President Trump's transition net approval. You go back to November of 2016. Look at this. It was just at plus 1 point. Just at plus 1 point. That is well below the historical norm. Look at where we are today. Significantly higher, plus 18 points. That's 17 points higher on the presidential transition net approval rating. The bottom line is this. If 8 years ago Americans were lukewarm on Donald Trump, at this particular point, they're giving him much more the benefit of the doubt. A lot more Americans are in love with this transition. This much more meets the historical norms where normally presidents get that boost coming out of their victory. And what we're seeing here is Donald Trump's presidential transition is getting a thumbs up, and dare I say, 2 thumbs up from the American people.
And, you know, we're still on the appointment phase at this point, but it does give insight to sort of where this team is thinking to lead some of these key departments, of course. I mean, but how do people feel about the prospects of his presidency, given the context of some of these picks?
Yeah, it's not just that they like what Donald Trump is doing right now. They're optimistic for the future. So, again, let's compare ourselves now versus where we were 8 years ago. And what you see 8 years ago, 53% of Americans were scared or concerned, the majority towards the upcoming Trump term. Look at where we are now. The shoe is on the other foot. 53% of Americans are excited or optimistic. It's flip-flop, where a narrow majority 8 years ago were scared or concerned about the upcoming Trump term. Now what we see is that the majority is excited or optimistic about the Trump term. So what we're just seeing is very different numbers from where we were 8 years ago. 8 years ago, folks really were not that in love with the Trump transition. Now they are, and more than that, looking forward to the upcoming Trump term. 8 years ago, the majority were scared or concerned. Now the majority are excited or optimistic.